But if those voters switch or even stay home, it could cost Biden a crucial swing state and potentially the 2024 election.
In Michigan alone, we had 145,000 Michigan Muslims go out to vote, and Biden won by 155,000 votes.
You know, we really went out for Biden, and historically, whoever wins Michigan wins the presidency. And really, I use the word that we saved Biden in Michigan.
He cannot win without our vote. I think he's taking it for granted.
When Biden was running against Trump, I thought that Biden would be somebody who would lead with compassion, would lead with humanity. I thought he would be somebody that was a little bit different, but clearly I was wrong.
History will not forgive him for doing this. We will not forgive him for this when November comes next year. We will not forget.
They won't. You know, history will not absolve Joe Biden for what he's done. And I am looking at the races right now. Like, for instance, I think people who are running outside of duopoly now, like RFK, I think has the biggest amount of people who are running outside the duopoly. He's over 20% in some polls. Then, of course, you have people like Dr. Cornel West that is running outside. You have Dr. Jill Stein now that is running. She's running at, under the Green Party. You have Jasmine Sherman. You have Dr. Shiva, Claudia De La Cruz. So you have a plethora of people who are running outside the duopoly right now that also are getting more eyes on them, because people say Biden, Trump, it's like one fash, two fash, red fash, blue fash. And that's the way it looks like to them.
Yeah. And they're seeing it. It's like that old John Carpenter movie, They Live, where if you put on the special glasses, you get to see that the people really are, the leaders are secretly crazy aliens.
Yeah. And
you get to see the truth. Yeah. So we got the glasses on now. So we're seeing the truth. A lot of us have been doing it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I do encourage people on the left, the real left, not the Democrats, to be gentle with people in their evolution. Not everybody comes to the truth at the same time in the same way. Took me a while, right? I mean, I used to knock on doors for Democrats, make phone calls, go to fundraisers.
Yeah.
I worked with the town Democratic Committee that I'm part of, for a township on Long Island for years. And even though I was always more to the left, I was like, this is the way we have to do it. And it took me a while. And so I remember voting for Clinton the second time. I wasn't going to, but I had a conversation with I'm very, very strong on reproductive justice.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a conversation with a friend of mine who worked at Planned Parenthood at the time. And she convinced me, she's like, you got to do it. And I was like, you're right. I don't like them, but I will. And that was, I look back and did it matter? What would Bob Dole have done? I think that's who was running against Bill Clinton. What a pathetic, horrible opponent he was. But it's this belief that they can do any. These are the thoughts of an abuser in an abusive relationship.
So this is something that I've observed regarding Joe Biden. Joe Biden is basically a president that is. I personally do not think that he will get reelected, especially after the events that have happened over the last month and his complicity towards it. There was. Hang on, okay. There was a news report that was put out by Al Jazeera Plus that basically interviews a lot of Muslim as well as Arab Americans, particularly ones in Michigan, which is a swing state that could really cost Joe Biden the election. Let's hear what a lot of them have to say, especially since what happened in Gaza.
I will not vote for Joe Biden in the 2024 election. The cost of a Palestinian life means more to me than anything else.
We traveled to Dearborn, Michigan, home to the largest Arab American population in the U.S., to find out how the Biden administration's unwavering support of Israel is impacting their view of the president.
I will never vote for any Democrat again after what they did to us this time.
Nowadays, if you're voting for Biden or even if you're voting for Trump, you're putting yourself into a situation where other people's lives are at stake.
We're really dealing with a very difficult, it's like up between a rock and a hard place at that point.
Honestly, I'm leaning towards not voting in the first place.
So I pray and hope at that point there's going to be some sort of a change. We're not just ticking a box because we have no choice.
Your thoughts on that, first of all, Professor?
Good for them. People ain't dumb. People ain't dumb, and people remember. You know, look, the Democrats are a shit show and have been for a while. Wow. They're embracing identity politics is itself racist. And they don't, so like, they don't care about black people in the United States, but they want black people to vote for them. So they put black people in positions of power, and Joe Biden brags, I've got the most women and the most diverse, and yeah, but you don't care about the issues that affect them. And mostly we're not dealing with a situation like we are now, but when it happens, true colors come out. Why should people who are Arab or Muslim in the United States trust a party, a candidate who is aiding and abetting the erasure of their people? Because that's what's happening. And I'm glad to see it. I hear it from young people. I mean, my students, a lot of young people don't have allegiance to political parties. I had a student say something to the effect of like, hey, I voted for Hillary in 2016 because I thought first woman president, she's a Democrat, so am I. I'm paraphrasing, but I didn't know much about her except what she said during the campaign. And since I've been looking at what's happening in Gaza, I've been reading, and I found out what she did in Libya. And the quote was, she's a horrible person. This is was a liberal Democrat. They're losing Arabs and Muslims. They're losing black voters because they've done nothing. Joe Biden said that. Remember the phone call after he won, but before he was inaugurated, with a bunch of black leaders? It was a phone call that was leaked. And he was yelling at them. Joe Biden is a horrible, horrible man. So, yeah, you brought up Tara Reid. After he sexually assaulted Tara Reid, she says that one of the worst things was he turned around and looked at her with his eye. You did see his eyes when he laser targets, and said, "You mean nothing to me." So now imagine, and I said it at the time, that is him talking to the entire country and world. So, in ways, he's very much like Trump. He's just more evolved in the way he goes about communicating with people. Trump isn't. Trump doesn't give a shit. He'll just say crazy shit all the time, which is why a lot of his base likes him. Whereas Biden knows mostly how to say the right thing, but then he goes off track and, Xi is a dictator. Dude, you just met with the guy and you're trying to put treaties together and you're calling him a dictator. So, Biden's lost it completely. He is obviously in cognitive decline and shows obvious signs, what looks to me as dementia. I'm not diagnosing, I'm just observing. But he's always been a horrible, horrible person. Now, as the shit hits the fan with Israel and Palestine, people are paying attention to it because it's unavoidable. It's the same with the economy too, right? Because he's running around and all of his, well, he's not really running around. He's not campaigning. The man can't campaign. He's an old, I know 80-year-olds. He's an old 80. He is not doing well. But they're running around saying how great the economy is. And Americans are like going to the grocery stores and a bag of groceries is almost $100. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Inflation is down. Yeah, but prices aren't down. Inflation compounded over 3 years is 20%. I'm paying $120 for a bagger, and bread is 30% higher than it was 3 years ago. So it's the disconnect between the words and the presentation and the messaging, that narrative, and reality. So you can say, we told Israel, be nice when you drop those bombs. That's what the United States did. They suggested to Netanyahu, why don't you use smaller bombs? What the
All
fuck?
right, Anthony. All right, man. I'm out. I'm gone.
No,
I'm gone.
come back. I'm sorry.
Wait. Be nice. Be nice when you drop the. Dude, are you kidding me right now?
That's what they're saying.
That's the most asinine thing I have ever heard.
Yeah.
Like, why? We are literally. Look, they are cartoonishly evil.
Cartoonishly evil. They don't know the shit.
Like, what in the world is wrong? Yo, this country is. Yo, they got.
You know what? That woman who interrupted Elizabeth Warren, who stole valor from Native Americans by saying she was part Native American.
Yep.
You look up the definition of white person in the dictionary. There's a photo of Elizabeth Warren. She's not only white, she's whiter than Justin Bieber. She's like, you don't get whiter than Elizabeth Warren. She's whiter than Vanilla Ice. And that says a lot. Baby. We stole that riff. He said he didn't, but he did. Doom, 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 doom. It's right out of under like Queen and Bowie. Dude, you stole it. And just be like, yeah, I stole it and I made a lot of money. Good for you, thief. You're still not a good rapper. Not a good rapper. Never a good rapper. Anyway.
He's building houses now, apparently, on
You know what? I wish them well. I wish them all well. But Elizabeth Warren should never have a peaceful meal. Neither should. I got to tell you, a lot of people were on the I Hate Birdie train before I was. And it still makes me sad because he inspired me in his 2016 campaign. That said, and at the beginning of 2022, these people should. I'm not talking violence, not the AOC kind of you yelled at me and used words violence. I'm talking about real, I'm against real violence. Interrupting someone's meal is not violent.
No.
And, so like, it's okay. It's okay to confront them in public with our words, non-threatening, like don't threaten people. But these people aren't. They're just saying, listen, my family members are dead. And your government, our government is part of it, and you're voting to fund it. And this isn't okay, is a very fair thing to say to an elected representative if you meet them in public. Aaron Mate got thrown off the train.
I reported on that on Tuesday. Yeah, that was crazy, right?
No. And that I think they're doing a movie too. Throw Aaron off the train.
Oh gosh, it's wild, And the thing is that there's so much more that I want to get into because there is actually more to this. Because Biden is what I like to call. I'm trying not to cuss because, I'm trying to be better. But. God, so I want to cuss Biden out sometimes. I really, really do. If he was in front of me, I would cuss him out. Anyway, let's go.
I don't see any difference in the policy between both of them. At least about Trump, you know what he's going to do. You will not feel betrayed. I mean, I really feel betrayed with what Biden did this time.
For many Palestinian Americans, the violence in Gaza is not a distant reality. It's very close to home.
Do you know how many family members you've lost so far?
It's 20. Yeah, so 4 on Saturday, 4 on Monday, and 12 on Wednesday.
A recent poll showed that support for Biden among Arab Americans fell from 59% in 2020 to just 17% today.
Whoa, that was a lot.
That is a lot.
From 59% to 17%?
In a matter of a month. I mean, that 59% number was probably lower because he's done a shit job, but no way was it anywhere near what it is now. The guy, I can't imagine you lost 20 members of your family. My God, how sad. You'll never see them, never celebrate a birthday, never get to visit them. They'll never come to visit you. They died horribly. Like, there's nothing okay about any of it, and he's one person. There's how many people are dead in Gaza? They say 12,000, the Ministry of Health in Gaza. But how many are missing? How many are in the rubble? And Israel's not done. I really think they've pushed the people into the south to kill as many of them as possible.
I believe so too.
Yeah, which means Israel needs to be cut off from all military aid. Israel needs to be sanctioned by the world. They sanctioned Russia for what Russia did to Ukraine. I was against the invasion, by the way. I don't like invasions.
Mm-hmm.
Russia had reasonable things to say about how Zelensky's government was bombing the Donbass, which is a war crime. But I don't believe in the invasion, right? But they sanctioned Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Sanction Israel. You're not even allowed to say it in some places. Right now, the students at some universities, including Columbia, where I teach,
Mm-hmm.
are students and some faculty are pushing for a divestment from companies that directly contribute to the apartheid going on in Palestine. You know, and they're not being treated well either. So look at the way the Democrats treated the peaceful protesters who were singing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Columbia University decertified two student groups, Jewish Voices for Peace and Students for Justice in Palestine.
Yeah.
They decertified the groups. They're no longer an official club. And they said it was temporary. And what came out yesterday in a faculty meeting, which has been reported by the Columbia Spectator, so it's like out there in the news, the administration went in and changed the rules just so they could decertify these two groups. You know? But here's the thing. Everything they do, whether it's Biden, Israel, or smaller, institutions that are not challenging it, like say a Columbia or other corporations, everything they do makes us stronger and makes the end result more likely, which is a just world. They're trying everything, and it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen protests like this before?
Me personally, no. Well, but beyond the George Floyd protests in 2020, no.
And I think it's bigger now.
It feels like it is getting bigger because it's not just what's going on in the United States. Because, of course, anybody who's watching, they've actually protested for George Floyd in Gaza and the West Bank and Palestine as well. They literally have murals for George Floyd. So that's the solidarity that Palestinians have with Black people. But as far as this is concerned, I have not seen protests this big. And this goes in line with what I was talking about with Danny Haifong last week, where we were speaking about how Israel has really lost the narrative. And in one of the things that I am saying now is, as Gaza continues to lose, Biden loses. As Israel wins, Biden loses. And here's the thing a lot of people are realizing now, because there was a poll that came out about the ceasefire. 80% of Democrats say they want a ceasefire. Over 50% of Republicans say they want a ceasefire.
I know.
So over an aggregate of all likely voters, over 60%
It's
want
68.
a ceasefire.
68% want a ceasefire. Wait, a ceasefire and negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
And again, here we are. And so when Columbia University tries to silence two student groups, Jewish Voices for Peace, like, they're Jews expressing how they feel. Is it not anti-Semitic to silence them? But as these groups are silenced, as the DNC beats up protesters with their Capitol Police thugs, as that happens, they lose. I tweeted this out a week or two ago. Israel is the only country where the more people they kill, the more they lose the war. And you know, I don't think people are getting it. I've been saying this for a while in interviews for the past few years. We are winning. We just don't see it because we're looking at the snapshot. There is a global awakening happening. And there is a spiritual, I don't mean religious, nothing against religion, but a spiritual element to it where people believe that another world is possible and that we are capable of creating it.
Yeah.
And that is what the powers that benefit from chaos do not want us to see, think, or feel. We are winning. And I'm not saying that flippantly while Gaza is flattened. What I'm saying is people ain't having it.
But, you know, just to add to your point, they're calling anybody that's killed in Gaza right now martyrs. And what happens with martyrs is that when people see when that person is murdered, it more leads them over to that side of the person that was killed, that was martyred. And so what we're seeing right now that's going on within, especially within the collective West, is that they're seeing, oh my God, they are the actual true victims. We need to be on their side because they're really being oppressed. And so it's like every single step that Israel takes forward in massacring more people in Gaza, more people in the West Bank, the more Israel is losing this influence, losing what hold it has on the world, even to the point now we're being called anti-Semitic by the state of Israel, especially. It's like,
listen,
it's kind of like
it's just like identity politics, right?
Yeah.
Like if you criticize Kamala Harris, you're a racist and misogynist. You know, if you criticize Pete Buttigieg, you're anti-queer.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, actually it's the opposite. If I refrain from criticizing a public official simply because of their identity, that's problematic, right? And the Democrats love identity politics. Republicans like it too, by the way. You know, when they have somebody like Tim Scott running, they can be like, you know, Tim Scott, see, we have a black person running. Nikki Haley, we have a woman running, and she's is her background Indian, I believe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, she's Indian.
Or I wasn't sure, but I know it was something Asia. They can do that. Republicans do it too. They criticize Democrats, but then they do it. And the bottom line is, that's what Israel is. If you're going to say our nation is now a Jewish nation, it is a Jewish nation, it was founded as a Jewish nation. First of all, that's a religious fundamentalist ethno-state. I'm against that. I don't want an Islamo fundamentalist ethno-state, nor do I want a Christian ethno-state here. All the Democrats, you know, are like Christo-fascist ethno-state. I'm like, hey, I'm right there with you. I don't want that either. And why Israel? That's okay. But then the trick is, just like if you criticize Kamala Harris, you're a racist misogynist. If you criticize Israel, you're an anti-Semite. Listen, any public official is open to criticism. Any nation is open to criticism. Any and all governments are open to criticism. So And they're calling Jewish Voices for Peace anti-Semites. These people are out of their fucking minds. And let me
Yep.
I wanted to throw something else out. When social work students at Columbia had a peaceful protest in the School of Social Work to raise awareness, and also specifically to say, so I'm a social worker, right?
Yeah.
We are supposed to be, one of our fundamental values is self-determination, is to fight against systems of oppression wherever they exist.
Exactly.
So the social work students are taking it seriously. Vice president of the university came there and was like, they were handing out letters basically saying you could be, flyers, you could be sanctioned, this could affect your education. Like they were threatening them basically.
Wow.
In one of the videos, he's confronting a student or a few students. He's confronting all the students because they use the phrase "from the river to the sea," and he said that's anti-Semitic and pro-genocide. Let me tell you something: if you are afraid of 6 words, then you're a petulant child. My God, these words do not mean genocide. Flattening Gaza does mean that members of Netanyahu's government have come out and said, this is the second Nakba. They've said it. That's genocide. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. These people are having the same reaction to those words as racist white people had to the words Black Lives Matter. We didn't say white lives didn't matter. Why are you threatened by that? Why are you threatened by Black people saying they matter? That's, and one last thing about this, we didn't center white fragility when we had discussions about why Black Lives Matter. Why are we centering Zionist fragility? Conversations about Israel and the war crimes it's perpetrating. Like Zionism is not Judaism. My Jewish friends are very upset with what's happening, don't like Benjamin Netanyahu, and are against the war. Well, it's not even a war. It's a slaughter.
Yes.
But they're trying to silence us. And my point is like, okay, they're losing. They are losing. This is a masks off moment. Status quo only benefits the disproportionate inequality that exists in this world. And people are seeing it. Biden, I don't know. I predicted a bunch of times that he wasn't going to be the nominee. I still hold to that. I just don't think he's going to be the nominee, but I think whoever they try to get to replace him, it's not going to matter.
Yeah. Let me continue this video really quick because I want to finish this because there's some other stuff. But just to add to your point about from the river to the sea, Elon Musk said this earlier. He said, as I said earlier this week, decolonization from the river to the sea and similar euphemisms necessarily imply genocide. Clear calls for extreme violence against our terms of service will result in suspension. Here's the thing. People like Elon Musk do not understand that it is not a euphemism for genocide. It is not a euphemism for anti-Semitism, because the thing is that asking for liberation from an occupying force, from an occupying state that's illegally occupying your land and committing apartheid is not a call for the ending of the lives of the people.
What was the other word he used?
Decolonization.
Oh.
Yep. Exactly what you said. And they say calls for decolonization. And the thing is that one of the things I noticed, and I watch plenty of TikTok now, and a lot of what's being said now is, pushing for decolonization, pushing to end, the genocide that's happening in Gaza. There's also pushes for ending the genocide that's happening in Sudan, as well as Congo and in Haiti. And so, what do all these have in common? So, when you call for an ending of colonization, you're literally calling for an end to the West, really, and the global North, to stop doing what it's been doing for the last 500-600 years.
Yeah, at least. Hey, I watched Sabby's show last night. She's so good. She was talking about, I completely lost it, about the use of words. It'll come back to me. But that whole idea of like decolonization being a dangerous term, it's just, she was talking about slavery, and she said, there was a whole bunch of white people when slavery was, after the Civil War was made illegal, who were really worried because they thought, uh-oh. And you know what? That didn't happen. In South Africa, which was like Israel, an apartheid state, but not as severely an apartheid state as Israel is now. Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years-ish. When he was released from prison, when the apartheid system of South Africa was dismantled, when Nelson Mandela ran in a free election, was won, and was elected president, the black people, the Africans in South Africa, didn't slaughter the white Afrikaners. That's not how it went.
No.
So, but I get the oppressor worrying, but Elon Musk, in the words of Dr. Cornel West, because I like when he says this, everybody has got problems with it, it doesn't matter. The guy's still saying some great shit. Get off the crack pipe. Get off the crack pipe. Decolonization is not a call for genocide. From the river to the sea, that's very poetic. It's so funny. There's a song I grew up singing as a child, and it ended with the words, from sea to shining sea. What? Are we genociders? Well, technically, and actually, we genocided Native Americans so that we could sing our From Sea to Shining Sea song. People need to be free. I've said this. Why don't we use a simple concept called democracy? All right, Israel. How about this? Everybody in the territory you control gets equal rights and an equal vote. Have an election. See how it goes. So here's the deal. They don't want to do that. There's more Palestinians. So absolutely, it's not a democracy. It's an apartheid state. And Elon Musk, I would wonder, he's from South Africa. Has he ever said anything about South African apartheid? I don't know. I've never heard him talk about it. But I'm not surprised that he's saying this about Israeli apartheid. Don't tell an oppressed person what words you can and can't use in describing your just quest for liberation. Now we're complaining about the words. I'm all for your liberation, but you're using those words I don't like. What's that
And
about?
that's not liberation.
You don't get to tell oppressed people, now speak properly. Here's the approved list of phrases that you can say in calling for your life to be saved and your liberation. There's an approved list.
That doesn't sound like free speech to me.
Yeah. Well, what did they?
Is he a free speech warrior?
What's an uppity black person? Somebody who doesn't speak. That was the term that was used a lot. Oh, they're uppity. No, they're using their language to describe what's happening for them and their experience in the world. You don't like it because you don't want to be faced with the truth of how you've been oppressing them or continue to. So, of course, you're uncomfortable with that, but we're not here to just be comfortable. It wasn't comfortable. Nothing. No, transformational change isn't comfortable. It's not supposed to be.
It's just like what one young lady said. I think her name was Kimberly Brown, I think her name, or Kimberly, I forgot her name, but she did a speech, and this was after the George Floyd protest, and one of the things she said was, "You're lucky that we're looking for equality and not revenge."
I've heard that.
Yeah,
I've heard
and the thing
that.
is, that, sorry, go ahead.
No, you can. I'm sorry.
No, it's just the thing is, a lot of people, a lot of the collective West, the colonizer mindset is they're going to do to us what we did to them.
Of course.
Because they're afraid. There's a fear, right? And I think that fear is really just your conscience eating at you, saying, oh my God, I cannot believe I did this. Now we're going to face the exact same thing. When in reality, ultimately, I don't want to make it sound like we're better, but we know what it's like to be on that side.
Right.
So we don't want to perpetuate it to anybody else. And it's not like just because you shot me in the foot doesn't mean I'm going to take the gun away and shoot you back in the foot. I'm going to take it away and I'm going to break the gun and I'm going to throw it away. And it's never going to be used again so that nobody else is shot. And then the wound that I have will continue to be there. But at the same time, I'm going to keep pointing that wound to you to show this is what you did.
Yeah.
This is why we don't want this anymore.
Here's how we heal. But yeah, just going back to that phrase, like it's so obvious. They don't have an argument. Those who support Israeli war crimes and atrocities in Gaza and the West Bank, those who support the continuation of Israeli apartheid, don't have any arguments to make against it, right?
Yeah.
So the only thing they can do is criticize the language used by the oppressed and their allies and co-conspirators.
Well,
we don't like your language. We're the language police. What you say really means genocide. No, it doesn't. Well, the Hamas charter, I'm not a member of Hamas. You're a terrorist supporter. No, I'm actually nonviolent, and I am not a terrorist supporter. And so you keep doing that. They hope if they keep repeating it, people are going to say, oh, yeah, that's the pro-Hamas. Look, people aren't dumb. You keep using it when the bipartisan legislation is passed condemning student activist groups on campuses across the nation. You know what that says to me?
Yep.
They're terrified of us because we're right and we're winning. We're winning the narrative battle pretty quick, right? Like this is like not even, it's 6 weeks today,
right?
But this trend has been going on for a few weeks. 3 weeks in, they realized, oh shit, we're losing the narrative.
Yeah.
They thought this would be an easy one because October 7th, I watched it, whatever CNN, I don't watch it a lot, but that's where I got my news from that morning. I was like, holy shit, this is a big deal. Any sympathy that the world had with Israel on October 7th, and by the way, they had a lot. People were pretty horrified. And I get that there's arguments like they're IDF soldiers. And that aside, it is accurate to say many people in the world had sympathy for Israel on October 7th. And any sympathy that existed that day was pretty quickly erased by Israel's disproportionate response. This is on them. Mm-hmm. They could have done this very differently. Mm-hmm. And anybody who's a military strategist, and I listen to people, they're never going to eradicate Hamas. They can't. Mm-hmm. It's just never going to happen. Mm-hmm. So when they say that's what they're doing, that's not what they're doing. They are trying to erase the humanity and the souls of the Palestinian people, which you can't do either. So they're losing no matter what. But back to Biden, though, I think the Democrats are quite surprised, and I think they're freaking out right now. And that whole it's a year away. I listen to sometimes this radio on Sirius. It's like the progressive radio. It's not really progressive. It's just pro-Democrat. And you hear some of the commentators, and they're all like toe-the-line Democrats, like Tom Hartman and all. But there's one guy, Dean Obadiah. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. He is Palestinian. He's Muslim. He's a comedian, but he's usually straight down the path Democrat. He's been wavering, but they still say, I still think Democrats are going to come out and vote for Joe. It's a year away. And I'm like, I don't think they get it.
They don't get it.
The news, MSNBC, they don't know what to do.
No, they don't.
You've got the group.
You're wavering now.
Who?
Like even MSNBC is wavering now. Let's just finish. We're only halfway, but I want to finish this. But this is just so revealing.
A lot of our community members are coming to me. They're saying, Netta, we're either vote third party, we are not going to vote top ticket, or we're going to stay home.
Surveys estimate Biden won more than 2/3 of the Muslim vote in the US in 2020. But if those voters switch or even stay home, it could cost Biden a crucial swing state and potentially the 2024 election.
In Michigan alone, we had 145,000 Michigan Muslims go out to vote, and Biden won by 155,000 votes.
We really went out for Biden, and historically, whoever wins Michigan wins the presidency. And really, I use the word that we saved Biden in Michigan.
He cannot win without our vote. I think he's taking it for granted.
When Biden was running against Trump, I thought that Biden would be somebody who would lead with compassion, would lead with humanity. I thought he would be somebody that was a little bit different, but clearly I was wrong.
History will not forgive him for doing this. We will not forgive him for this when November comes next year. We will not forget.
They won't. History will not absolve Joe Biden for what he's done. And I am looking at the races right now. Like, for instance, I think people who are running outside of duopoly now, like RFK, I think has the biggest amount of people who are running outside the duopoly. He's over 20% in some polls. Then, of course, you have people like Dr. Cornel West that is running outside. You have Dr. Jill Stein now that is running. She's running at, under the Green Party. You have Jasmine Sherman. You have Dr. Shiva and Claudia De La Cruz. So you have a plethora of people who are running outside the duopoly right now that also are getting more eyes on them, because people say Biden, Trump, it's like one fash, two fash, red fash, blue fash. And that's the way it looks like to them.
Yeah. And they're seeing it. It's like that old John Carpenter movie, They Live, where if you put on the special glasses, you get to see that the people really are, the leaders are secretly crazy aliens.
Yeah.
And you get to see the truth. Yeah. So we got the glasses on now. So we're seeing the truth. A lot of us have been doing it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I do encourage people on the left, the real left, not the Democrats, to be gentle with people in their evolution. Not everybody comes to the truth at the same time in the same way. Took me a while, right? I mean, I used to knock on doors for Democrats, make phone calls, go to fundraisers.
Yeah.
I worked with the town Democratic Committee that I'm part of, for a township on Long Island for years. And even though I was always more to the left, I was like, this is the way we have to do it. And it took me a while. And so I remember voting for Clinton the second time. I wasn't going to, but I had a conversation with I'm very, very strong on reproductive justice.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a conversation with a friend of mine who worked at Planned Parenthood at the time. And she convinced me, she's like, you got to do it. And I was like, you're right. I don't like them, but I will. And that was, I look back and did it matter? What would Bob Dole have done? I think that's who was running against Bill Clinton. What a pathetic, horrible opponent he was. But it's this belief that they can do any. These are the thoughts of an abuser in an abusive relationship. They believe, yeah, because like we worked, I worked in that, I study that. The abuser believes they can do anything they want to their victim, and that they will always get away with it. That's their foundational belief. I am the right to do what I want. I can beat you, I can rape you, I can, abusers, I can drain your bank account, I can isolate you at home and prevent you from ever speaking to friends or family. I had somebody once who told me she lived with her boyfriend, and they were diagonally down the street from the family that she grew up, her house. Her mother and her sisters lived in that house. And when they got the apartment, she said, I was so happy because I'm like, I can see my mother and sisters every day. And she looked at me and said, I haven't seen them in 3 months. I'm not allowed. Right? So abusers control every aspect of your life and believe they're entitled to it. And that's exactly what's happening now. Israel's doing it and has been doing it to Palestine, including the West Bank. Democrats and Republicans do it to us. But the Democrats are the ones who say, we care. We don't. They're so much worse. They're so much more dangerous. Trust us. And then they abuse us. Yeah. And now people are seeing it. Masks are off. They're trying to silence it. When you try to silence dissent, which is not even dissent. 80% of Democrats want a ceasefire. 68% of all Americans want a ceasefire, and you've got two Jewish Voices for Peace and Students for Justice in Palestine at a major university in the world, in the United States, globally recognized, and you shut them down and you change the rules so you can silence them. You've lost. You have lost.
Yeah.
They're losing, and they're spinning. They're spinning out of control, and so expect more horrendous shit from them.